As a reminder, each lesson comes with the PDF lesson plan, which has the objectives, the overview, the standards, as well as a pre-lesson checklist. And then it works through a warm-up. The lesson activities, those vary with each lesson, but most of them include a guided practice and an independent practice portion of the lesson. And then there's a wrap-up for each lesson as well. And then the slides also have accompanying slides. And if you're using this at home with distance learning, I encourage you, when you give the resources to your learners, that the slides are a great thing to pass along to the students or your children, because the slides do not have the behind the scenes answer keys and solution screenshots in them. And so they're a great resource to have the students follow along with, without giving them all the extra added answers to the lesson. As we work through these lessons, I switch back and forth from you being talking to you as though you're students and teaching you the content of the lesson, as well as talking to you as though you are teaching and facilitating this lesson. So we'll switch back and forth, and we'll discuss how to teach this as well as what is being taught in this lesson. In our previous lessons, we were introduced to our fun character Panda, and Panda came to us from a galaxy far, far away, and we have been teaching Panda many skills and learning some skills that Panda has. In our last lesson, we built upon lesson 4 was having Panda walk in place, and lesson 5 was having Panda run a race. And so we have begun to look at 2D animation and how we can use animation to give the appearance of movement on our stage in MBlock. And then we went in the last lesson and had the ability to use user input, the arrow keys, to move Panda forward and run the race using the keyboard input. We used a space bar and the arrow keys. We also looked at adding multiple sprites to our MBlock projects. And we're going to continue to build on some of those skills. As Christy said, if this is your first lesson with us, you should be okay today. We won't be covering all of the basics, but you should be able to jump in and see what we're doing today without too much difficulty. From here on out, the next 2 lessons do begin to get a little bit more complex, but what we're going to do today is we're going to build upon that. We're going to use the skills in 2D animation that we learned using costumes, and we're going to animate a new character, and we're going to have that character interact with another sprite. So we're going to give the appearance of synchronizing movement or synchronizing animations with multiple sprites. So this lesson is still considered a beginner lesson. Each lesson is approximately 45 minutes. And at the end of this lesson, we're going to have our students able to create a program that synchronizes those costume changes and motions for multiple sprites. So in our last lesson, we had multiple sprites. They both had costume changes as well as different animations happening, but they were not synchronized. They did not we did not try to have them going necessarily one after the other. We just had them happening on their own. The friends were cheering for Panda just in the background. We're going to look at a new block. It's the glide to block in this lesson, and we're going to compare and contrast the go to XY coordinates and the glide to XY coordinates for a certain number of seconds blocks. We're going to learn how to show and hide our sprites. We're going to, this is the lesson where it actually teaches us to duplicate the programming blocks, which we have done in these webinars previously, even though it wasn't taught in a lesson. And we're going to learn how to change to a specific costume, not just going through the list of costumes like we did in the previous lessons. We're going to be programming Panda to learn how to kick a soccer ball into a goal from his friend Jordan. And so we're going to see that Panda shows up at the soccer field in this lesson. To do this, we're going to learn how to control more precise movements by using the glide to block. And we're going to explore how to combine the motion and the costumes to synchronize those sprites together to create more complex animations. And we're going to learn not only how to, but also be able to identify the benefit of showing and hiding those sprites. So as a reminder, I like to switch over to the slides at this portion of the lesson, but the lesson plan does give you the information that you need in the lesson plan as the instructor to facilitate this lesson. I'm going to move over to the slides and go ahead and teach from the slides as though I was teaching this to my students. And we always start each lesson off with a review from the previous lesson. So in our last lesson, we looked at Panda, and what did Panda do? Well, we programmed Panda to go to XY coordinates, and then forever, because we looked at loops last lesson, we looked at having Panda forever repeat, moving one step and going to the next costume. So after the green flag is clicked, Panda will move to the starting point. So we use the go to XY coordinates to set our starting point at the beginning of our program. That's a very important thing to remember from our last lesson because we're going to do that again today. And then we repeated the action of moving forward and changing costumes, and we repeated it forever. We also programmed another sprite, one of the boy characters, and boy 11 was cheering and repeating that cheer forever. Every half a second would cheer and then wait a half a second and cheer again for half a second. And we did the same thing for our boy 15. However, boy 15 not only cheered every half second, but also switched costumes because this sprite had multiple costumes. So in this lesson, in this lesson, we're going to go ahead and look at how Jordan can kick a soccer ball. Okay, and so when the lesson plan introduces this portion of the lesson, we have Panda ran that first competition and was very interested in learning more about the sports that we have on Earth. Okay, so Panda visits a soccer field and finds Jordan practicing making goals. So Jordan's practicing those penalty kicks. And Panda is excited to be able to watch Jordan and then also learn how to kick a soccer ball into the goal as well. So this is what we're going to program. And then we're going to also look at how we can change the XY coordinates to control where the ball is kicked and how fast the ball is kicked. So that's some of the extension as we continue through this lesson. So we're going to look at this trajectory of this ball sprite, and we're going to be able to control where the ball goes with more precise accuracy than we had previously. So we're going to begin with the hands-on portion of this lesson. This is the portion of the lesson where you can follow along. So I'll be giving you instructions to be working in MBlock. If you do not have MBlock installed on your computer, you can use the web app version, which can be located on the mblock.cc website, and you can create your program from the web-based app for MBlock. We're going to begin by changing the size of a sprite. So in order to program this program, we want to make sure that all of our sprites are approximately sized the correct size because we want the proportions to look realistic. We do not want the ball to be bigger than Panda and Panda to be bigger than the goal. You know, we want our proportions to be realistic, so we're going to go ahead and control the size. And we're going to find that in the sprites tab of the stage area, which we've looked at this before, and now we're going to be able to do that. So I'm going to switch over to MBlock to go ahead and walk you through these steps of the program. So if you do not have it open, go ahead and navigate to the desktop icon or to your start menu or to the website. And we're going to begin by making a new project in MBlock. And before we begin this lesson, this portion of the lesson, I want you to think about, and actually I'm going to go back to the lesson plan so you can see this in the lesson plan. Okay, what do we need to add to our program? So if we start with this blank program, okay, if we start with this blank program, what do we need to add to our program in order to create the scene that's going to tell the story of Panda watching Jordan practice scoring goals, okay? So if we want our program to look like this, go ahead in the chat and tell me a few things that I need to do to set my stage. What things do I need to do in MBlock to begin to tell the story? What things do I need to add? What things do I need to add to this program in order to have my stage be ready to go? Okay, we definitely need to add a ball. Someone said a ball. We need to add our background. Perfect. We need to add Jordan to here. So we have some new sprites we need to add. So for those of you, those are all correct answers. Way to go. So let's go ahead and do that. We have done this many times already in other projects. So I am going to go ahead and add these items. The instructions show us that we're adding the football field 1 background, that we are adding a soccer ball sprite, and we're adding the Jordan sprite. I'm going to go ahead and add all of these, and then we'll set the size. So you can go ahead and add the sprites in the background to your project. And I know that I am in the United States, so I'm calling this soccer, and I know that in many other countries it's called football. That's a great opportunity to, if you're in the United States, to talk to your students about cultural differences and how we call things different names. So the background is called football field because that's more of an international term. But and I, of course, am calling it soccer because I am in the United States. But I know that we have an international audience here. So when I say soccer, just be reminded that I mean football. It's the same thing. So we're going to add our goal in here. We're going to add our other sprites. And we do that by clicking on the add button. And I'm going to find those sprites. And when we add those into our stage, they're going to kind of be overlapping up here in the top left corner. Our sprites are all overlapping, so we want to move them around. We're going to put Panda in the bottom left corner. Okay. And then the instructions for this lesson, both in the PowerPoint as well as in the instructions, give us some added detail. So with Panda selected, we're going to set the size of Panda to 50%. We're going to make Panda much smaller. I'm sorry, yes, 50%. And then we're going to set the soccer ball to 50%. We're making everything just a little bit smaller. Okay? And we're going to set the coordinates for our soccer ball at the beginning of our program. How do I set the coordinates at the beginning of the program? What blocks have we learned previously do I need to use to set the position, a starting position of my soccer ball? What blocks do I need to set the starting position of my soccer ball? Okay, I'm going to need coordinates, correct? Which block is that? I need to, which one starts at the beginning of my program? Which event should I use? Which event would be a good choice at the beginning of my program? I see one answer. What event, if I go to the events category, would be a good event at the start of my program? We're going to go with the when the green flag is clicked, and I am on the soccer ball. When the green flag is clicked, and we're going to set the X and Y position by going to X, Y. And we're going to choose the coordinates that are given to us in the instructions is -111, -116. I'm going to zoom in on that for you. -111, -116. So we're going to have the soccer ball go to these coordinates. I'm going to hit the green flag to test to make sure that is correct. It's awesome. Now, Jordan is also a little big, so we're going to go to our Jordan sprite. we're going to set the size to 80%. We're going to go to the Jordan Sprite, and we're going to set the size to 80%. We are also going to set the starting position. Now, I want to show you something. I believe I showed you in a previous lesson, but I want to remind you. When we are on the soccer ball, we learn to duplicate by right-clicking duplicate. But I can actually click this whole entire section of code and drag it to Jordan. You see Jordan kind of wiggles a little? And when I let go on Jordan, I have copied that code over to Jordan. And I can change the starting position coordinates to the coordinates provided in the instructions. So I'm going to repeat that. And that's not quite right. It's negative. Right about here is where we want it to be. So what coordinates is that? Negative 47, negative 117 is a good spot. Negative 47, negative 117. Okay? And so we have, when you're on a Sprite and you want to duplicate the block of code, you click and drag the block of code over to the Sprite and let go. Now I've done that twice, so now it's there twice. So I'm going to delete it. But it will copy that code over to our Sprite, our second Sprite, which is a really neat way of saving some time when you are programming in MBlock. You can duplicate code. So we've added all of our sprites that we're going to need. We've added our background. We've set our starting position. So when I hit the green flag, my ball and Jordan are in the right spot. So now what we're going to do is we're going to review and practice our animation, our 2D animation that we did last time by using costumes. Where do I find the costumes again? What category of the blocks area do I go to change the costume of Jordan? I'm going to go to the looks category. Great. Now, how many costumes does Jordan have, and what do these costumes look like? Okay, last time we went to the costumes area. So when we are on Jordan, we can click the costumes button. And when we click the costumes button, we will see that Jordan has 4 costumes. Jordan has 4 costumes. We want to animate Jordan to make a kicking motion, a kicking animation. And previously, we went just down the list. Next costume went down the list. Okay? But if I go to next costume, next costume, next costume, that doesn't look like she's kicking. They're kind of out of order. Okay? There are 4 costumes here. And in order to make Jordan look like she is kicking, we're going to think about how to kick. When we kick, we prepare, we lift the leg, we kick the ball, and then we end. So the proper order of an animation is to start with a costume 4, go to costume 2, costume 1, costume 4. So watch this. 4, 2, 1, 4. 4, 2, 1, 4. Okay? That is the order we want to animate our costumes in. And since we need to specify which costume to change to instead of going in chronological order, we're going to learn a new block. I'm going to close the costume interface. So we're back in our programming area. And I'm going to look at this Switch Costume 2 block. Switch Costume 2 block. We're going to start with costume 4, which was also costume D. So we're going to switch to costume D. We're going to wait a specified amount of time, which is 0.5 seconds. And remember, you can duplicate. So I'm going to right-click on that purple switch costume to. We're going to go from costume D to costume B. Again, I'm going to duplicate. Costume A, duplicate, costume D. Now, when I run my code to test it, it looks like Jordan is kicking the ball. It looks like Jordan is kicking the ball. So you can see that these instructions are included in the slides as well as in the lesson plan. So I'm just following the lesson plan and the slides, but I'm staying in MBlock and showing it to you as we work together. So the next portion of this lesson, now that we have Jordan moving, that animation effect is in place. Now what we're doing right now is what we call decomposing a problem. We're breaking a problem down into smaller sub-problems. Our first sub-problem was to go ahead and decorate or make our stage have all of the objects as well as the background that we needed. We needed our stage to have the proper appearance. That was the first problem we solved, the first sub-problem. Then another sub-problem as we decompose this problem is we set our starting positions for our characters, our sprite. Another sub-problem is we've put the 2D animation using costumes in place for Jordan. So what's another sub-problem? Well, if we know anything about kicking a ball, when Jordan's foot hits the ball should move, right? That's another problem. The ball should move. So that's another problem as we decompose this problem is we're going to move the ball, okay? And when we used the GoTo block, I want to show you something. On the soccer ball, if I were to say I want it to go right here inside of the goal, okay? And I were to use the GoTo block, okay? So if I were to use the GoTo block, it jumps there. It instantaneously just appears or shows up in that location. But a ball doesn't instantaneously move. It glides or goes there slowly or with a certain speed. So we're going to be able to do that using a new block. The new block is showcased in the slides. We're going to use the glide a certain number of seconds to XY coordinates block, and it's going to move the sprite smoothly to that specified position at the stage in a specified amount of time. So that's what we're going to do here is we're going to move this ball when it is kicked, when it is kicked. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to use the glide 1 second. We're going to go for 1 second, and we're going to change the position. We're going to change the position. And we will see that the ball is hit if we use X50, Y70. Remember, we looked at the coordinate plane in the last lesson. If we use the X and Y position 50 and 70, our ball is going to hit the top of the net. So we'll go with that. Okay, the top of the goal. Glide 1 second to X50, Y50. Now there's a problem there. There's a problem there. Go ahead and in the chat, what problem do you see? What problem do you see? Do we see a problem? When I run this, there's a problem. Someone said there's timing. It's not synchronized with the kicking of the ball. Those are perfect answers. That is a perfect answer. So when we hit the green flag to test our program, the ball moves before Jordan even kicks it. That's not the animation we're trying to achieve here. So what can we add to solve this problem? We learned in a previous lesson how we slow things down or pause. How do we slow things down or pause? I have an answer, but does anybody else have an answer? How do we slow things down and pause our program? Okay, so we can use the wait block, So in our control section, we can wait. Now we had Jordan changing costumes every half a second. We had Jordan changing costume every half a second. So is 1 second going to be long enough? Well, the costume that is the kick costume is the third one. So it's a second away before it switches. So it should be perfectly timed if we use a wait 1 second block. So now we have solved another sub problem, which was how do we get the ball to move when the ball is kicked? How do we get the ball to move when the ball is kicked? Okay, so that's another problem that we have solved. Okay, so Jordan is pretty good at soccer, and Jordan almost always makes it in the goal. Almost always. But sometimes Jordan misses the goal. Sometimes Jordan misses the goal. So what happens if the ball goes way over here? What happens if the ball goes way over here outside of the stage? Okay, because Jordan missed the goal and the ball goes beyond the stage. What can I do to have the ball disappear? What can I do to have the ball disappear? Okay, so we're going to stay right now with our trajectory of the ball landing in the goal, because going off the stage is farther in the lesson, but we're going to learn how to hide this ball. Okay, so again, this is in the lesson, and we're going to, see, we did all this. We're going to show and hide. We're going to look at the show and hide, which we've looked at before, but we're going to use them on the ball. We're going to add the show block and the hide block for the ball being kicked. Okay? So, when we are programming this and we go to the looks category, remember those are towards the bottom of our list. So we scroll down, we can show and hide. Show and hide. Okay, and we're going to see how this builds. So the ball goes into the net and then it disappears. Okay? So at this time, the ball is programmed to hide, and that's why it's very important that we put the show block in there as well, because we need to make sure that when we press the green flag again, that the ball appears. If we did not have the show block here and we just hid the ball, and we looked at this in a previous lesson, do you see the ball when I hit run? It hides at the end of that and we never see it again. So it's very important when we hide things that we also make sure we show them when we want them to be visible. So we want to make sure that whenever we use the hide block, we also use the show block. So what we're going to do is we're going to save this program, and we want to save it. I'm calling mine penalty kick. Actually, I'm going to call it lesson 6 penalty kick, because that's the lesson we're working on. As a reminder, if you're logged into your account, you can save the program. You can save the program in your online account. If you are not logged in to your account, then you can save it to your computer by going to the File and then Save to your computer. Okay. I'm just going to save mine on the desktop. So you can save this file. I wanted to save it because we're about to open up another file that is in the example files, and I wanted to make sure that I did not lose my work, which is very important. So we're going to look, I'm going to open, you don't need to open it just yet. I'm going to open this file so that you can see the example. So in the lesson 6 folder, there is an example program. There's an example program, and when we look at the example program, I want to show you some of what is programmed into this example. Now, we did this one together. This is the one we did together. Okay? The example program has an added event control, which is to use the left arrow. Okay, so when we press the green flag on this example program, the green flag is going to kick the ball, and the ball is going to go into the goal post. Okay? Now, what we're going to do is we are going to add to our program left arrow. So when we go to the ball, same thing. We've done this green flag portion. When the green flag is clicked, we've done this portion. We're now going to add the left arrow controls. And this is in the lesson plan using the left arrow. Do you see in this example? This is what I was talking about when we kick the ball away. So we're going to go ahead and add this program to the one that you have that we were working on together. We're going to add kicking the ball away, and we're going to do that with the left arrow key. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the program that we just worked on. I'm going to open it from my computer because that's where I saved it. But I wanted to show you that example project because that's what we're going to work on. We're going to use the left arrow key. So the best way to do that is to duplicate the code, is to duplicate our code. So we have two things moving right now. We have Jordan moving and our soccer ball moving, okay? So we're going to right click on the code for Jordan and we're going to duplicate it. And we're going to change the event to when the left arrow key is pressed. When the left arrow key is pressed. I'm seeing that there are some questions coming in, and those questions that are a little bit above and beyond this lesson, I will answer at the end of the lesson so that I'm not adding stuff into this lesson as I'm teaching it, but I do see some of those questions coming in, and we will get them answered. I just don't want to change this file right now as we're working in it, except for what's in the lesson. So I'll answer those questions, keep them coming, keep asking them, and we will get them answered for you. So we're switching this over to when the left arrow key is pressed, and we're going to no longer need this green flag down here. And we're going to, this one is going to stay in the same position. Jordan is going to stay when I press the left arrow key in the same spot. However, the soccer ball, when I duplicate the soccer ball and choose the left arrow key and move it over, now I'm going to change where the ball goes when we hit the left arrow key. We're going to go to 228, 169. 228, 169. When I press the left arrow key, the ball is going to go off the stage. The ball is going to go off the stage. She's kicked the ball away and missed the goal. Now that goes a little fast, and the instructions tell us to go 1.5 seconds. So when we're working with the glide block, we can slow the motion down by making that number larger. We can increase the number of seconds. So when I press the left arrow key, the ball glides slower up to the right corner. Okay? And so now we have programmed to kick the ball away. Kick the ball away. So we've put two programs into this program. When we press the green flag, the ball goes to the goal, and when we press the left arrow key, Jordan kicks the ball off the stage, past the goal, and misses the goal. Again, we can save this program, and we will have it saved. Now, after each portion of the lesson has the guided practice, that is where the independent practice or the try it portions of the lessons come into play. And we will see that the PowerPoint gives some pictures of the instructions. So we're going to have the students kick the ball into the goal, into a different area of the goal using the space key, and then they're going to hit the post using the right arrow key. So they're adding 2 more programs to this program to have the ball be kicked into 2 different places. And in the lesson plan, we can see that as we continue in the lesson plan, this is the instructions. They're going to kick the ball into the goal, and they're going to kick the ball onto the post. Okay? And this also animates because when the ball hits the post, they are going to want that ball to, one of the challenges, the added challenges in the lesson is that the ball rebounds. The ball rebounds, okay? So those are the independent practice. They're going to have the ball as some of the extension or challenge activities. They're going to have the ball rebound once it hits the goal post. They're going to have Panda ask Jordan to show how to kick the ball. So Panda's going to use the say, and then program Jordan to kick the soccer ball to Panda. And what's neat about this lesson is because at this point, many of your students are going to work at different paces. Some of your students are going to be ready to tackle all of those challenges. The lesson plan comes with 2 additional files. One is the extension and one is the goalpost rebound. So the extension activity, when you press the space key, the ball kicks. Now you have, this is an extension. Panda, when you press the space key, Panda goes and kind of like plays goalie and kicks the ball back. You can also use the right arrow key and the ball hits the goalpost, Panda goes and kicks the ball back. So you can continue to add more animation here. These lessons are written for the majority of your students to be able to accomplish them in 45 minutes. And so some of your students will have that added time to go and add those features. And then here's another example of the goal repost, and this is just a standalone file that you can use to show your students what that file or what that project or animation would look like to kick the goalpost and bounce back. That rebound that happens when it would bounce off of the goalpost. And you can see that that is done by just using 2 different glide 2 blocks. So if we were only to use that first one, it would hit the goalpost and stop, which is not very realistic. That added one there is what adds that rebound to it. So the extensions for this lesson, just continue to practice using the blocks that were new to this lesson, those glide, as well as the glide blocks, as well as coordinating those animations happening so that you can have a more complex animation than just one character moving. Now you have 2 sprites, Jordan and the soccer ball interacting. And in this example here, the extension example, you also have Panda included in that game. So you're now having 3 sprites coordinating their motion and their actions. And if we look at Panda, you can see that Panda also has a right arrow and a space key, just like Jordan, right arrow and space key, as well as the soccer ball, which has the right arrow and space key. So we can see how these programs continue to layer in those events for each sprite, and each sprite is reacting to those events. So let's review this lesson, ask a few questions, and then I will address all of the questions that have come in. Some of them are awesome because you guys are asking questions that add more features. You want to increase the complexity of these projects, which is great. I love that, so I want to help you do that. Okay, so which of the following blocks can display the hidden sprite? Which block allows us to display the sprite? Okay, correct. The C, the show block. Perfect. Great job. Okay, when running the code, which of the sprites, what will be the sprite's path of movement be? What type of shape would the sprite make? So we have to think about our x, y coordinates. Our x, y coordinates. So x200, 0. x200, 0, where's that? x50, 0, y0. x200, 0. x50, 0. What are we doing? What are we doing? Correct. D. We're moving back and forth in a straight line. We're going to the right, to the left, to the right, to the left in a straight line on that y axis. Good job. That was a more complex answer. Great. Complex question. When running the code, the sprite will glide 4 times. What is the slowest instruction? So that previous code, the sprite will glide 4 times. What's the slowest? Which one will move the slowest? Perfect. The 10-second glide. 10 seconds is a long time to go that 200 distance on that x coordinates. It's a very slow. So C is the correct answer, the slowest, which means the slowest 10 seconds is going to take the longest to move. It's going to move very slow. Okay. So that is lesson 6, which is the penalty kick lesson. And we worked through moving our sprites using the glide block, which is a great way to control more precise movement. We also looked at the difference between that GoTo XY, which is instantaneous, and that glide XY coordinates. We looked again at showing and hiding our sprites and the importance of that. We really looked at the importance of setting those starting positions and those qualities at the start of our program. And we added more sprites to set the scene and add animation to these sprites. Now, that's the end of lesson 6, but as I said, there were some questions that came in, and some people were asking questions that I wanted to make sure we addressed. So I wanted to take us back to the program, and I'm going to open the example program to answer some of these. Okay, and so somebody asked about using the costume and sensing the costume in order to change. Okay, so that gets into using, so somebody said, can we just have the soccer ball move? Can the soccer ball move instead of waiting 1 second here? Can the soccer ball move when Jordan's costume switches to a specific costume? Okay. Yes. Yes. However, you can do that, but it involves blocks that we have not yet learned. Okay. So this lesson is continuing with the motion and looks blocks and the events blocks and combining those together. We have not begun using the if, then. We haven't looked at those in great detail yet. We haven't used them a lot. We also have not yet used the sensing blocks, which in this case, it wouldn't be a sensing block, but we haven't used these if, then blocks just yet. And so being able to switch or move the ball, being able to move the ball when the costume changes on Jordan is a more complex program than what this lesson wanted to address. We weren't quite ready for that yet, but it is doable. And if you are the person that asked that question, then maybe you can try and figure it out. I can give you some tips afterwards once we're done recording and show you how to do that. But you'll need to, it's a little bit harder of a problem to solve than just saying if the costume is, Jordan's costume is 4, then go to. So another question was, can we use, I'm not sure, can we use an event if event? So if yes. So many of you are asking, can we use the if to control when the ball moves? Yes, we can. That's more complex than this lesson. Another option, which is less complex, but we're not there yet, so this is an above and beyond, is to use the broadcast blocks. The broadcast blocks would be the easiest right now with what we know, is to broadcast a message. So when we're on Jordan, we can, when we are done with costume A, which was kick, we can switch to costume A and say kick. Switch to costume A and we can broadcast kick. And when we broadcast kick, we can say, when I receive kick, go to. The only problem with that motion is that we have Jordan kicking to a few different places. So like the left arrow has Jordan kick away. So you'll need one that says kick away. Like you'll have to change each one of your sequences. But we could use a broadcast block. We are getting into broadcast blocks in a future lesson. Those are covered down the road. But I know some of you were asking, so I wanted to make sure that you knew that was available. Did I miss any other questions? Did I miss any other questions specific to how we were animating this lesson? I want to make sure that I didn't miss any of the other questions that came through. Patrick, if you saw any other ones that I haven't answered, please let me know. Of course, we'll open up the mics and let you... Yes, a lot of you are asking about using a condition, an if-then statement for changing the costumes. Yes, there is a way to do that. That goes beyond this lesson. This lesson was focusing on continuing to learn the looks and motion blocks and not adding conditionals in to this lesson, but you can add those in on your own. One great thing about MBlock is that your programs continue to develop and you can continue to make them more and more complex. You can make them, you can continue to add functionality. Hey, wouldn't it be really cool if we did this? And you can begin to simplify your programs by using those types of controls. But because these lessons are meant to be a very introductory beginning to MBlock, they do go there. This is a beginner lesson, so they do start with those beginner concepts. They do not jump into the more complex stuff very quickly. So somebody's asking, is there a way to make the ball spin when kicked? Yes, there is. We have not looked at this in great detail. However, we did look at it a little bit. So when we are on the motion, when we have these turn blocks, you can turn a certain number of degrees and you can put those in a repeat. Okay, and if I were to do that, okay, you will see the ball spin. So your challenge would be how do you get the ball to spin and move at the same time? One way to do that is that broadcast that I mentioned. So you could broadcast spin ball, and we could, when I receive spin ball, so watch what happens. That should work. And there the ball spins. 50 times might have been too many. Okay, so we can, when the ball is kicked, the ball spins when it's being kicked. You could use a forever block, but it will continue to spin. So you may not want a forever block. Okay, there's more complexity that you can add there, but for those of you asking if you can spin the ball when you kick it, yes, you can. So the great thing about MBlock is we continue to build programs. These programs build on top of each other, and they make more complex programs. And it really is only limited to your imagination. So your students are going to have these same ideas. Your students are going to say, is there a way to spin the ball when it's kicked? And you as the teacher can say, yes, there is. Why don't you try using these blocks and figure it out? One great thing is to challenge your students to start looking at the blocks and seeing which blocks might solve that problem for them. Because as we said in previous lessons, it's very difficult to teach every single block in MBlock in the number of lessons that we're teaching, but you're learning the basics of how MBlock works, and you can start to come up with your own solutions of combining blocks to solve the problem that you'd like to solve. So with that, I am passing the baton back over to Christy. And if you have any further questions, we can stay on the line. But Christy, I'll let you go ahead and close it out.
Okay, great. Thanks, Rosemary. Another wonderful lesson. I think we all learned a lot. I appreciate your time and everyone joining us today. Just as a reminder, we do post these on our YouTube channel, so you can get the full recording. They'll usually post it about 24 hours after we complete. And you'll notice perhaps that lesson 5 has not been posted yet. Both 5 and 6 will be posted tomorrow around this time. So we'll send you a follow-up email that has a link to that, but Patrick will post a link to the video recordings in our chat box now. And then for those of you that need to go back again maybe and download some prior lessons for your students, we're also posting where you can pull those lessons from. So make sure that you are downloading those and saving them to your computer so you have them for future reference. And thank you, Rosemary, again for a wonderful lesson 6. We look forward to lesson 7 on Thursday, same time. So Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern.